Steve Harvey spent decades building a public image rooted in confidence and control. The sharp suits, the booming laugh, the seemingly effortless command of the stage. But long before he became one of the most recognizable hosts in television, his personal life was anything but smooth. What few people fully understood was just how close he came to losing everything, and how the lowest point of his life happened to fall on the very same day his future with his current wife began. To understand how Steve Harvey ended up rebuilding his life almost overnight, you have to go back to where it all started. Harvey married his first wife, Marcia, in 1981, while he was still working as an insurance salesman and hadn't yet found his footing in comedy. The couple had 3 children together, and for years Harvey juggled fatherhood with the grind of trying to break into stand-up. That marriage ended in 1994, around the same time Harvey was beginning to find real traction in his comedy career. It was during this same period of upheaval that Harvey crossed paths with Mary Shackelford. The two married in 1996, and a year later welcomed a son, Winton. On the surface, it looked like Harvey's life was finally stabilizing just as his career was about to explode. He became one of the central figures behind the Kings of Comedy Tour, a run of shows that grossed tens of millions of dollars and turned him into a household name. But according to Mary, the marriage was troubled almost from the start, and the success outside their home didn't translate into peace inside it. By the early 2000s, the relationship had collapsed. Harvey and Shackelford officially divorced in 2005, and what followed was anything but a clean break. The court battle over their son's custody was bitter, and Harvey ultimately gained custody of Winton, an outcome Mary would spend years publicly contesting. She has said repeatedly in interviews and online videos that she lost not just her marriage, but her financial footing, her business interests, and her relationship with her son in the process. That anger didn't fade quietly. More than a decade after the divorce, in 2017, Mary filed a lawsuit against Harvey seeking roughly $60 million in damages. The filing was unusual even by celebrity lawsuit standards. Among the accusations were child endangerment, intentional infliction of emotional distress, and a claim she described as soul murder, which the suit defined as a combination of torture, deprivation, and psychological manipulation. She said in the filing and in a series of YouTube videos that she had become suicidal in the years after the divorce and had to self-medicate to cope, and she insisted she'd never receive the financial settlement she was owed. Harvey's legal team didn't hold back in response, calling the allegations meritless and saying they were prepared to fight the suit aggressively. In the end, a judge dismissed the case, ruling that any legitimate dispute belonged in Texas, where the original divorce had been finalized, not in a California courtroom. The dismissal didn't end the public back and forth, though. Mary continued to speak out for years afterward, keeping the old wounds visible long after the legal door had closed. What makes Harvey's story compelling isn't just the divorce itself, but what happened in the hours immediately surrounding it, and how badly things were going for him financially at that exact moment. Harvey has said in multiple interviews that right around the time of the split, he discovered a financial disaster he hadn't seen coming. His accountant had died, and in going through the paperwork left behind, Harvey learned that years of tax payments he believed had been sent to the IRS had never actually been filed. The checks existed. They had simply never been mailed. He ended up facing a tax bill north of $20 million, the result of roughly 7 years of unpaid obligations piling up without his knowledge. By his own account, despite having earned enormous money from Kings of Comedy and his television work, he found himself with only $1,700 to his name right as the divorce was being finalized. His TV deal at the time had ended, his steady income had dried up, and now he was staring down a tax debt that dwarfed anything he had in the bank. It's the kind of collapse that would leave most people frozen, trying to figure out how to survive the next month, let alone rebuild a life. Instead, Harvey did something nobody expected. According to the story he's told publicly, including in a Facebook video he shared years later, the very next day after his divorce was finalized, he was sitting in a casino fully absorbed in a hand of gambling when his bodyguard interrupted him with a phone call. Harvey has said he doesn't like being bothered while gambling and initially waved the call off, but his bodyguard insisted it was worth taking. When Harvey finally picked up, the voice on the other end belonged to Marjorie, a woman he hadn't spoken to in close to 20 years. The two had crossed paths back in 1990, well before either of their marriages had fully run their course, and Harvey has said he felt an immediate connection at the time that never developed into anything because the timing wasn't right. 2 decades later, with both of them now divorced, that conversation picked back up as if no time had passed. When Harvey learned Marjorie had been divorced for years, he didn't wait around. He made plans to fly to Memphis to see her almost immediately, even though his own divorce had been finalized only the day before and the news hadn't even gone public yet because of how Thanksgiving week scheduling had worked out. Marjorie, for her part, wasn't interested in getting involved with anyone who wasn't truly free. She told Harvey plainly that she didn't date married men. He reassured her that his divorce had just gone through, but rather than take his word for it, she reportedly spent about a month quietly confirming the divorce was real and finalized before she let herself reconnect with him. When she finally did, and Harvey watched her walk toward him in the lobby of a hotel in Memphis, he's described the moment as one of total clarity. He had let her go once before, and he wasn't going to make that mistake twice. What's striking about the timing is that Harvey wasn't stepping into this relationship from a position of strength. His income had slowed to a trickle, his tax debt was looming over every decision he made, and his public image had just taken a hit from a messy, high-profile divorce. By his own admission, Marjorie didn't walk into a stable, comfortable situation. She walked into the middle of his collapse and chose to stay anyway. Harvey has credited her repeatedly with helping him claw his way back, both financially and personally, during a stretch of years where he was paying down that IRS debt at a rate of roughly $650,000 a month for 7 straight years just to get clear of it. Harvey and Marjorie married in 2007, and building a life together meant blending 2 very different families. Harvey brought 4 children from his earlier marriages, his twins, his son Broderick Jr., and Winton, while Marjorie brought 3 children of her own, Morgan, Jason, and Lori, whom Harvey later legally adopted. Merging 7 kids from different histories into one household wasn't seamless. Harvey has spoken candidly about the friction that came with it, including a moment when one of the children told him outright that he wasn't their father. Rather than brushing that off, he said he treated it as something that had to be earned slowly, through consistency rather than assumption. Even as the new family found its footing, the past kept resurfacing. Rumors of infidelity followed Harvey and Marjorie for years, something Harvey has consistently denied, and the old narrative from his second marriage would periodically reappear in headlines whenever Mary spoke out again. Even something as small as a family vacation could reignite public speculation. When 2 of Harvey's daughters were absent from photos of an Italy trip shared publicly in 2024, it was enough to spark fresh chatter about possible tension within the blended family. Through all of it, Harvey's career did eventually recover. He moved into hosting, most notably taking over Family Feud, and built out a broader media presence through radio, books, and business ventures. The contrast between the man who once had $1,700 to his name and the version of him now estimated to be worth hundreds of millions has become a central part of how he tells his own story, particularly when he talks about resilience and starting over. Looking back at that stretch of time, the finalized divorce, the casino phone call, the immediate flight to Memphis, the discovery of a crushing tax debt, all happening within the same narrow window, it's hard not to see it as the hinge point of Harvey's adult life. It wasn't a slow, careful rebuild. It was a series of fast, high-stakes decisions made by someone who, by his own description, had almost nothing left to lose. Whether that makes the story remarkable or simply reckless probably depends on who's telling it. Mary Shackelford's version of those same years paints a very different picture, one of loss and betrayal rather than reinvention. Both versions exist in the public record, and neither fully cancels the other out. What stands out most, though, is how little time passed between the ending of one chapter and the beginning of the next. Most people facing financial ruin and a public divorce in the same week would need months just to catch their breath. Steve Harvey, by his own telling, didn't take that pause, and nearly 20 years later, That decision is still the one people bring up first when they talk about how he turned his life around.